Hey everyone, what's up? Welcome back to the Corey Boutwell podcast. Today I am with a dear friend of mine, Connor. I've known Connor for quite some years, and the past 3 years, we calculated the other day, it was the past 3 years, you've been on a pretty crazy journey. Can you give us like a little brief intro of like what you've been doing? Because you lived in Adelaide for a while.
Yes.
And then you moved to Gold Coast.
Yeah.
And then you started off a business, and then that got really successful, and now you're here.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically the entire story.
It's all done just like that.
So it was 2018, I think. No,
Yep.
17. I decided to move from Adelaide to Gold Coast.
Yep.
And at that time I was a personal trainer. And that's kind of how we met, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I drove up to the Gold Coast. Didn't really have a plan. I started personal training at the gym for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then basically I was like looking for something to do, and I had this friend that I met at the gym, and she launched a ebook, like an online guides basically. She had a lot of followers on Instagram, and she released one that went really, really well. And she just sold it to girls. And so we became friends, and she was like, oh, I want to do another one because this one went so well. And it will be for guys and girls. And because you're a personal trainer, can you help me with that? So I helped her build this guide, and we launched it. And then she said, well, do you want to run some Facebook ads for it? And by this point, I was doing a little bit of like online advertising for personal training. I built my website. I was doing some Facebook ads. So I was like, okay, cool. And so I set up these Facebook ads for this ebook. And I remember it was like the craziest thing. Spent like days studying it, launched these ads, spent $9, and we made a sale. And it was like a $90 product USD. So we spent $9 and we made $90 back. I was like, what? Because like by this point, to make $90, I would have had to have trained clients for like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And we just did it with this like internet thing.
Yeah. With this thing called the internet.
So after seeing that, I was like, okay, that's awesome. I used a bit of online advertising to run my personal training business. Now I sold something online with this ebook. I thought that this would be something that I could maybe help other businesses with. So within like 2 weeks, I quit my job at the gym and started a social media marketing agency, basically helping small business owners grow their social media. Didn't really think it through because when I signed up working at the gym, I signed a 6-month contract. So I had to pay rent at the gym. It was like $350 a week rent. And I was renting like some room in some dude's house in Queensland. So I was paying like $600 a week rent as well as like food and bills. And I had like zero income. So I was like chewing into my savings pretty quickly. And I just started a brand new business in a brand new industry, knew nothing about, knew no one in a new city. And so it was like probably not the best idea. But I think by doing that, it allowed me to really start to like stick with it and make changes. Whereas if I had done that in Adelaide, like I probably wouldn't have been uncomfortable enough to follow through. And so it like really forced me to grow and change a lot in like a very short amount of time, like a couple months. And after about 3 months of like non-stop work, like from 4 a.m. to 11 p.m., 7 days a week, I finally got my first client. And then after that, we grew pretty quickly, started taking on bigger and bigger clients. And they had budgets that we would run their ads for. So we had one client who their daily Facebook ad spend was like $20,000 a day. And so when you're spending $20,000 a day on Facebook ads, like you better learn how to get results pretty quickly. Otherwise you're just going to be wasting a lot of money. So by doing that, I was able to learn how to use Facebook ads and online advertising, and then progressively just learning more and more about online advertising. And then that was basically how we got started. And then we found that because we were working with bigger and bigger clients, the smaller clients couldn't afford us because we had to charge more because like supply and demand. And so we were turning away a lot of prospects, businesses. So we decided to make a program that basically took everything we were doing, took everything we learned, all the systems, all the funnels, all the templates, and taught business owners how to do it themselves. And that's basically how we started Instinct Education.
Yeah. So what would you think was like the mental switch, like in your own mind, that made you go like, all right, I'm going to go like balls deep in this? Because I remember as well, like just knowing you're one of the most like elite optimized people I know, who's just like so focused on like personal internal growth, personal performance, and then helping other people perform. So what do you think was like the real like mindset shifts that you had early on, which may have stuck with you now or have like started to really develop?
Well, I think the biggest thing was, so like when I started this business, going from personal trainer, I thought it was just like hard work. And I still think like hard work's really important, but I was like working, like I said, from like 4 a.m. to 11 p.m. every single day. And it took me...
How did you get through that? How'd you do that, by the way?
Well, I think like a lot of someone's identity is made up of the people they're around, like their environment, and also like what they do, like their title. So like if you're like a lawyer or a doctor, or I was a personal trainer. And so for me, I'd moved from Adelaide where I was around like all these people, all these friends. And so that was like a big part of my identity. And now I was in a new place where I knew no one. And I was a personal trainer and I just quit. So very quickly, like the two kind of pillars of someone's identity of like who they're around and what they do, I just like got rid of. And so I think that allowed me to like basically create a new identity or a new sense of who I was. And I was really, really focused on like building this business. And so, yeah, like I said, I think if I tried to do that in Adelaide, I probably wouldn't have been able to do it at least not as quickly, because it was kind of just like wiping the slate clean in a sense, because I hadn't like none of those tie downs to who I thought I was, and so I could create someone new. But what I learned, one of the earliest things I learned was that to really progress, it's all about like skill acquisition. And so when I started, I was like working really hard, and every day I'd like try a new strategy. And I'd book some meetings with potential prospects, but I could never sign up a client. And this went on for months and months and months. And then one day because I was going to like small local businesses, like mum and pop shops, and I was booking meetings, but none would like sign up as a client. And one day I was like walking from a meeting and they just said no for like the 20th time that week. And I saw like this really big hotel, it was like the Sofitel at Broadbeach. It was like a 30-story 5-star hotel. I was like, I'm gonna just try. So I walked in, and as soon as I walked in, I was like, this is stupid. Because like if a small local businesses won't say yes, like obviously a 5-star hotel won't. But before I could really like talk myself out of it, one of the receptionists came up and was like, hey, can I help you? And I just come from a meeting, so I was like wearing a suit, so they must have thought I was like fancy or something.
I remember this. I think you called me. Was it the day beforehand? It was even the day of, I remember. And you're like, I'm about to go into this place that's a really, really big hotel, and I'm going to go ask them to do their marketing for them. And then you just ran in, and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. And then because my last name is Marriott, like I was like, hey, I work with Marriott Marketing. That was the name of the business, but because it was a hotel, the Marriott Hotel, I think they may have like thought I was someone. So anyway, I spoke to a couple of people. I ended up speaking to the manager, and I was like, hey, like I can help you guys with marketing. It's like, awesome. Like we need that. Like let's organize a time to meet for later in the week. I was like, perfect. And as I'm leaving, he's like, just like, make sure you bring your presentation. And I was like, yeah, I couldn't forget my presentation. In my mind, I'm like, what the hell is a presentation? Like I didn't know what that was. And so I went home, I started researching. I was like, presentations, like what you do when you're trying to sell. Like you create a presentation of like your past work and clients. And so I was like, well, I don't have a presentation. Should I just cancel, or should I like try to figure it out? And I found this online training program. It was like $1,000 at the time, which at the time was like a huge amount of money, because I was like losing $600 a week just on bills. I didn't have that much savings left. And this was after about 2 months of this. So I was like really getting low. But the program taught you how to create a presentation. And I was like, $1,000. If I don't do this, like I'm probably going to run out of money in a couple of weeks anyway, and I'll have to go back to Adelaide. So I decided to pull the trigger and do it. And I learned, I think it was like a 12-week program. I went through it all in like 20 hours straight because I didn't have the time. But what I learned in those 20 hours was more than I'd learned in like the past couple months of what I probably would have learned in the next couple of years, condensed in a very short amount of time. And I learned how to give a presentation. And that was like the first time I really realized like, okay, like you can work hard to figure this out. And had I not done that, I probably could have kept working hard for another year and maybe figured it out. Or you can learn to acquire new skills and do something better. And by doing that, I learned how to do a presentation. I didn't land the hotel, but the next week I got my first client. The week after that, I got another 3. Week after that, I got another 7, I think.
You just based them off a similar presentation?
Yeah. Once I'd figured out how to actually sell, things really started to work. And so that was the first time I learned that like you can pay to acquire skills or learn like from a book or a program or a mentor or whatever. And that will allow you to move forward much, much quicker. And just by learning the art of like selling that one skill, I was able to start landing clients. And that was what, really started moving me forward.
What do you think would be like the 3 best skills that you've learned and really cultivated? Like
business or?
I would say for yourself.
For myself. That's a good question. I think for like us, obviously marketing and sales is really important. That's like a business thing. One thing that I've learned more recently, like through the help of you, is like self-care. There's like this analogy of the $1 million racehorse. And basically, like if you've ever seen a $1 million racehorse, you know that it's a $1 million racehorse, right? It's like protected, it's looked after. They like give it all the food, all the massages, like everything, so it can make $1 million. But if if you believe you have the earning potential to grow a business to $1 million, then you are the $1 million racehorse. And if you look at that racehorse and it's got more effort and attention into looking after it than you give yourself, then there's like a big disconnect there. And so like as an entrepreneur, especially until you're doing like 10 million a year plus, when you are like the pillar of your business, beyond that, then you like have teams and executives that can make decisions for you. But at the start, you are the most important part of your business. And if you are not looking after yourself, giving yourself the self-care, then like everything falls apart. Like if you got staff that depend on you, or clients that depend on you, you can't really afford to get sick or run down or anything. So that's something that I've started doing more of. And like the business results definitely reflect the level of self-care.
Yeah. So return on investment, but it's like return on investment for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you do for that?
Lots of things. Like this year, I've really started with like the biohacking stuff.
Yep.
Which we've been talking about a lot.
Yep. You have a good foundation as well. Like you're really fit, you exercise, you eat well.
Yeah.
Like you train really hard. Like super jacked. So we always say Connor's a buff Sam Ovens. So like you have that foundation, and then you started to like really dive in deep to some stuff.
Yeah.
Can you like give us a little journey, like start from the journey of what like you sort of started focusing on, and then like how you progressively started focusing and then getting towards the biohacking stuff, and then how it's like actually helped with your performance?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think like that's a really good point. Like obviously if you aren't dieting, you're not exercising, then no device is really going to help you.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of that I got from like Wellness personal trainer.
And you're consistent too.
Yeah, consistently doing the diet and exercise. When I first started business in those first 3 months, when I was working like all those hours, I stopped training completely, and I stopped eating. I was only eating like 1 meal a day just because I didn't have the time. And I lost like 12 kilos, mainly of muscle. But even though I had more time because I wasn't exercising and eating, like my output was way, way less than what it would be had I spent the time doing that. And so that's when I kind of realized that like you see these people that are like really successful in business, but they let their health go. I think like I realized within those first few months that like that's not a good strategy.
So you bought an O-ring. You're like the first person I've ever met with an O-ring.
Yeah.
You're like before even O-rings or O-rings. You're like, look, I've got an O-ring.
Yeah, and that's helped heaps.
Yeah.
But I think like the stability, one thing we spoke about was like having the stability. And so if you aren't dieting consistently, and it doesn't need to be like dieting as if you're dieting for a competition, just like having a consistent diet and eating the foods that you know give you energy and avoiding the foods that make you feel sluggish, exercising consistently and then sleeping consistently, and then the Oura Ring helps you track that. That is like that's like 95% of it right there. Like, are you eating? Are you sleeping? Are you drinking enough water? Are you moving? That is massive. And when you get those things right, then that's the biggest place to start. You'll notice by far the biggest difference for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what was your journey like, starting from that foundation and then starting to invest yourself, and then how does your performance also increase with that?
Yeah, cool. So I've actually have like the objective data because of the Oura Ring. So at the start of so this is after like obviously all the diet, all the exercise. So I haven't really set an alarm to wake up in a couple years. And I just wake up when my body's like ready. Normally, last year it was around 7 a.m. So I'd always go to bed around like 9 or 10 and I'd wake up at 7 a.m. I was just like, okay, well, that's how I feel. And I felt like fine. But my deep sleep was about 45 minutes and my REM sleep was about 15 minutes. Ooh. And so for anyone that doesn't know, like deep sleep is when your body's repairing the body, and REM is basically where it's repairing the mind. And so they were both quite low. And so
a good deep sleep score is about 2 hours, and a good REM score is 1 hour.
Yeah. So that was me sleeping or in bed from about 9 p.m. to like 7 a.m. and they were the numbers. Now, after doing all these things, I go to bed around the same time, but I'm waking up about 5 a.m. So I'm sleeping 2 hours less, but my deep sleep is 2 hours and my REM is around 1.5 to 1:45.
Oh, that's so good.
So it's like a 2 or 3 times improvement on both metrics with less time in bed, which is awesome. And so the things that I've done for that, again, on top of exercise and diet, I think the first thing was the Juve, which is red light therapy. That I like that a lot.
Yeah. So if anyone doesn't know what a Juve is, it's basically like this huge panel you get of like red lights, and you stand in it, and they shine these like really bright red lights, like these infrared red lights onto your skin, and then like with all the photosynthesis like sensors on your body, it like absorbs all of the good stuff out of the red light, and sort of it like recharges your whole body and like your mitochondria. It's pretty nuts. Kind of like a full stack, and you just stand in front of it naked, like yeah. And you just moved to this new place, and like didn't want the neighbors ring because you're like
yeah. Yeah, I got an email from my real estate agent. They're like, I think something's wrong with this. Like the neighbor called my real estate agent, and they're like, can you check in? Like, I think something's wrong here because in my bedroom there's no curtains on one of the windows, and so like to sleep well I need like black. Yeah. So I put garbage bags on the windows. Yeah. And then every morning at like 4 or 5 a.m. I'm showing this red light, and so the neighbors called the real estate agent like, there's garbage bags on the windows, there's like this red light, like I think something's going on.
Some guy's murdering people in the town. What is happening? You're like, no, it's just Connor standing there with the Juve and trying to get a good sleep.
Yeah, so
yeah,
that was fun. Yeah. But yeah, like that one's really good. It's kind of like a human charger a little bit, it feels like. The other thing is like the HEPA filter, which at my old place there was a lot of dust, and you don't really notice it, but if you wake up like sinusy, like congested, you don't really notice it when it's happening. But I got this HEPA filter, which is basically like a medical grade air filter, and now like I wake up like perfectly, I can breathe, and that made a huge difference.
And you're breathing all night. And the HEPA filters, like, they just make a little noise, just like me, just cleaning the air. But they literally clean the allergens out the air. So if you like suffer hay fever and stuff like that, they're also really good. As soon as I put one in my house, I literally just used to walk in my house and be like, I can breathe again. Like, especially in spring, it's like one of the best things ever. And like purely for sleep. Because like when you're sleeping, you want to breathe through your nose, obviously, not through your mouth. You get a way more better restful sleep that's way more better recharging. So yeah, I think all of these little things you're doing are definitely contributing to that.
Yeah, I think that made a big difference. Just like the ability to like go and not sneeze. Like every time I do that in the past, I'm like sneeze. So that's good. And then another kind of foundational one was the water filter too. So the air filter, the water filter. Then I got the chili pad or the Ula, which is basically like a reverse electric blanket. Makes your bed cold. That helps deep sleep a lot. And then you can kind of make it warmer as you wake up, which will help you get more REM. So playing around with the timing on that has helped. Another one is the Violite, which is like this weird like medical device looking thing. Goes up your nose. Yeah, that one basically shines red light into your brain and activates mitochondria in like your prefrontal cortex, which leads to improved cognitive abilities, memory, reduces Alzheimer's and all that sort of stuff. That one is actually probably the best. It was one of the more expensive ones, but in terms of brain performance, that like you can feel it. Whereas these other ones, like the HEPA filter, you're not going to wake up the next morning and be like, I feel incredible. But like it's like death by 1,000 cuts. If you've got bad air, bad water, you will feel worse, and over time you'll start to feel better without those or with those devices.
It's sort of like all these little technologies are just like, just preventing all of the little pollutions and things that like how we've been like living, of just like put them into a house. And it's like, oh, let's just remove these things and make them like really nice. And then feel better. You also got, you had some more things as well. What else did you have?
What else do I have? Good question.
You got the binaurals.
Oh yeah. So
you got this thing.
That's one I got from Benji, was putting speakers next to my bed and a subwoofer under my bed and then playing the binaural beats as I sleep. That's really cool. I like that a lot.
Yeah. What's really cool, I think, like with that whole binaural beats thing is like literally, so it plays, for anyone listening who doesn't know, it plays certain frequencies and certain hertz. And if you're listening to certain frequencies and certain hertz, like if you think thousands of years ago, if we'd sleep next to a beach, they would play like certain frequencies, right? And it'd help you get into a really good, like restful sleep, because what you listen to affects the brain waves that your body produces. And sleep works in like 4 different types of brain waves. It's got like a, almost like an A, B, C, and D, and they're called like, or alpha, whatever they're called. Alpha, delta, beta, and theta. Yeah. So, but I can't remember which way they go. But anyway, so basically you adjust them to the frequencies to deep sleep and like a REM sleep. And then what happens if you listen to those while you go to bed, it helps you get into a better, more restful sleep. Now, the thing is how binaurals work is one plays one frequency in one speaker and one plays like a very subtle, differently frequency in the other speaker. And then that makes your ears change the frequencies and allows you to get into really good sleep. But what you did, which I didn't know, is kind of found a little hack, is that there's this really good app called Brain FM. And it's just like a really good, relaxing app that you can use that's has the best binaurals. But he mixes that with a Spotify song, which is purely just hurts all night. So it's there's no noises, there's no rain or anything. It's just meh, at whatever frequency that you have. So he mixes that with Brain FM, plays them at the same time, and just levitates in bed the whole night.
Yeah, literally.
He's not on the bed; he's just levitating.
Yeah, that's really good. And the benefit of that is that it blocks out any other sound. So if there's a car driving on the street or something, you can't hear it, so it keeps you asleep. I think a lot of people they wake up a lot throughout the night and they probably don't even realize, just because there's these little noises.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're living with someone, then doing something like that's a good idea, because if they get up in the middle of the night, then they'll probably reduce that sound. Yeah.
It's pretty funny because a lot of all this stuff just comes back to how it's going to give you good sleep. You also recently got an ice bath, sauna.
Yeah, just this week we got an ice bath and sauna.
Yeah.
So I think they will be my new favorites, but haven't used them enough to say yet. But yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah. So how do all these things, have they affected your performance?
So the biggest thing I think is the sleep, because now, I wake up at 4 or 5 without an alarm, and I feel better waking up when I would have woken up at 7 or 7:30. And now I feel better. So less sleep, which means I wake up, I have more time throughout the day. I need less sleep, feel better. And then I notice, for me, there was one other thing I did last week.
Cool.
Which was the IV infusion.
Ooh.
And I really noticed a big one from that, but I've only had it once. So
okay.
That's
So how did that go? IV infusion, they put a needle into your veins and it put in what? What did you get?
I think it was a Myers cocktail. So it was vitamin C, vitamin D, magnesium. Sorry, not vitamin D, vitamin B, magnesium. And then they had this other stuff. It was the brain gains.
Cool.
They're do you want the brain gains? I was yes, give me all the brain gains. And they're is your brain always going? And I'm always. They're okay, you only get a little bit of the brain gains. I was no.
Give it all. Damn it.
So that had taurine and L-carnitine. But the next day, so the way I kind of track how I'm feeling is I'll start work at around 8.
Yep.
And I'll have 3 blocks of 3-hour blocks of deep work. But the first block's always the best. The second block's not bad. And that third block, I can't do as well just because I'm kind of fatigued. But after that IV thing, that next day, that last block was insane. My performance was 2 times better than what it would have been in my first block. So that was really cool. So I'm going to get them fortnightly now.
Okay.
And see if that continues. Because that was insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
But just my first time, so I can't say for sure.
Awesome.
If that was that.
So that's a whole bunch of physical hacks that people can obviously use to increase their performance if they've got the cash to do so. One thing that I think is really respectable about you is that you've achieved all these things. You have 2 online businesses that are both revenuing over $1 million a year. You got the ClickFunnels 2Com reward. You've got time abundance. You've got a team of, I can't remember how many people that you have as well. But to do those, I think that you have to have a certain amount of firstly, your goal isn't any of those material things, which I think is awesome. They're just a side effect of you working on yourself, and you're very clear about that. And I think that you need to have some sort of mental hacks for those as well, or actually do some things or put in the work to get there. What are some of the things that you suggest or you could recommend to people that have really helped you either upgrade your mind, use as a mindset hack, or do things in order to achieve interpersonal success?
Well, I think the biggest thing is it sounds lame, but self-awareness.
Yeah. Well, I went to a training once, it was an emotional intelligence training, and I listened to the whole thing because I was so intrigued. I'm yes, emotional intelligence. And I got one thing out of it, and all it was self-awareness equals emotional intelligence. They went through all these theories, and at the very end, just to simplify everything, it was just get self-aware, you'll have emotional intelligence. I was what?
Yeah. It's such a big thing, because I remember in the past, a few years ago, most people wake up and they feel not the same, and they don't know why. You might wake up, you're tired, you're grumpy, you're anxious about something, you're stressed, you're just oh, I guess I'm just stressed today. But like that, that's abnormal. Like you shouldn't just wake up and feel strange. And so by like taking the time to really understand yourself, and what I like to do is go on think weeks, where basically I'll book an Airbnb in the middle of nowhere, no phone reception, no internet, nothing.
How often?
Like, I mean, I try to do it a minimum once a quarter, so every 3 months. But if I've got a lot to think about, I'll try to do it more often. But yeah, you basically just go and think and get to know yourself. And you can ask questions, and like when you ask a question, your subconscious will kind of like cue into an answer, and if you follow that train of thought for like a couple hours, then you can get to the bottom of something. And so
so what does your think week actually look like? So you drive somewhere, you leave like your phone in the car, what's like the actual steps for getting into like your think week very tangibly?
Cool. So I'll try to book a place that has no reception, because people think like to do well you need great willpower, but like if I had my phone and I had reception, I'd be on my phone. So I just like make it impossible to be on my phone. So I go to a place with no reception, because then even if I want to go on my phone, I can't.
Number one, no reception.
Like I don't trust myself to want to use willpower for 7 days and not check my phone, so I'll just make it impossible.
That's some good self-awareness.
And then I go and I'll bring like some books, and I'll bring some like notepads. Sometimes I'll bring a whiteboard, and I'll basically, like at the start, the first few times I was just going to see like what happened, and I would just be sitting, and like you'll start to feel bored, and like your natural tendency will be like distraction, because that's like what you're trained to do everyday life. Bored, check social media or something.
That's funny you said that, because I just have like one experience I really quickly wanted to share. I did a float tank once, where it's like they said they were going to do like an hour, but they left me in there for like close to 2 hours, because I knew the people that were there, and I was like, this is great. The whole time I was like, when am I going to get out of this thing? And I did like every meditation I know, but halfway through I literally in my own mind was checking social media, like on my own mind, and I was going through Instagram, and I was swiping, I was checking stories, and then I go to Snapchat, and I was like, Corey, you're in a float tank, get off your phone. I was like, this is crazy how wide my mind is to it. So I think like that's like extremely important. Just my little 2 cents there. And
I think that's like such a good point, because like the human brain is like really, really good at learning behavior. And so if you do something, you get good at it. And we are in a society that like we're training ourselves to be distracted. And so like every day you're training yourself to be better and better at being distracted. And then your brain starts to like crave it.
You're so good at getting distracted.
And it gets to the point where like your brain, because like when you look at your phone, you get dopamine. Like it feels good. And then your brain not only encourages that, but it like searches for new ways to get that. So you'll try to focus, and you'll hear like a tiny little noise, and your brain will be like, oh, look at that. Because it's like trying to get more dopamine. And it's like a trained behavior you get better and better at, even though it's a bad thing. So you're actually getting worse and worse. So when you remove yourself from that, you don't have a choice to do it. And you'll notice like for the first few hours, or maybe the first few days, you'll like constantly be like, oh, what's that? What's that? And after time, your brain will like start to mellow out and reach a baseline. Typically what I do is I'll have some books. I'll try to write down like what I'm trying to do. Like I'll have a question I'm trying to figure out, or something like that. And it'll just be a combination of sitting and thinking, going for a walk, maybe reading, thinking, talking out loud, and just do this for like 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 days. And you get some really good clarity. Like I think if you feel uncertain about what you're doing, where you're going, your goals, anything like that, this is the best thing to do, because you get to know like what's actually driving you. And most people, I think, like I find that too, if I don't do a think week for a while, I'll just be doing things, and like you get in the zone of just doing things, and you just want to be busy and productive, but
you're being
like
busy
without actually recalibrating and zooming out and being like, okay, why am I doing this, and where am I going, and is this even going to get me there, and maybe there's a better way to get there, and maybe I don't need to do any of this, and I could do this instead, and like
you're just distracted.
You're just doing things.
It's really funny that you said that, because it comes out of like, there's a few books there. Stephen R. Covey talks about it. Everyone getting stuck and busy, how they're just constantly chasing the next one because they don't want to zoom out and face that what they've been doing for a long period of time sucks. And they're like, no, I shouldn't be doing this. And also like deep work. And then they say like, there's a lot of philosophers and people like that, because I think you recommended me that book as well.
Yeah, it's like my favorite book.
Yeah, is that why you started going out and doing think weeks? Because I remember
it might have been actually. Yeah, I know. Like Bill Gates did it. It's like the idea of Think Week. He would do it like every quarter for Microsoft, and would just like read and think. And he said the best innovations or the best ideas and the best directions for the company came from that time. So I was like, I'll give it a go. But it was probably around the same time I read Deep Work as well. And he kind of like talks about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. And you also help other people get on Think Week, because you like, obviously you're coaching business owners and other people, and you've had like some feedback from other people that have gone on Think Weeks as well. What have they said?
It's always like, I can't believe I haven't done this before. Or like, I can't believe I didn't do this sooner.
Yeah.
Or like, oh my God, like there's so much more clarity now. Like, why have I never done this? It's like, yeah. And to do it is, even sometimes before mine, I'm always like, oh, like, do I really want to do it? Because it's like strange to go in the middle of somewhere by yourself. Like
with nothing.
Yeah. And you probably won't want to do it, but I guarantee if you do it, you'll be like, oh my God, this was probably the best thing that I've done.
It makes a lot of sense to me, because I always think, like, when I'm ever thinking, I'm always like, oh, what were we doing thousands of years ago naturally? Like, what would happen? It's like, well, if we were hunter-gatherers and stuff and we had to go away and like get food, we'd be away with like weeks on end with nothing, just thinking about things all the time. So it makes a lot of sense that obviously in 2021 in a westernized world where we have so much distraction and everything is crazy, it's like, well, just have a little bit of time off yourself.
Yeah.
Just yourself.
Yeah.
See what you come up with.
And I think like the biggest thing you take away, like on top of like going there and figuring out where you're going and your goals and who you are and all that stuff, when you get back, you notice like you don't have those urges for distraction. And by figuring out your baseline, you can then like, when you do wake up feeling different, if you wake up feeling stressed, like you can pick it, because you're like, oh, this is like different. This is not my baseline. And then you can like start to figure out why. I think that's important, because like the quicker you can recalibrate on your emotions and how you're feeling, the quicker you can keep progressing. Like if I'm going in this direction and one day I wake up and I feel bad, so I start going the wrong way. If I can catch that in a few minutes, then I'm back on track. Whereas for most people, it's like, it could be that way for a week or a month or like years before you catch it. And then you're like 2 years off course. So the quicker and better you get at calibrating, the like faster and more effectively you can progress.
Yeah. It's just putting it just straight back on track every single time. I love that. What else have you got that like you'd use as like a, you know, a practical or tangible tool, mindset tool that people could use other than Think Weeks?
So like the first thing is like having a goal, like knowing where you're going.
Like get yourself a goal.
Yeah. And figure it
Jordan
out.
Peterson, find a target.
Yeah. And like reminding yourself of that every day, because it's like the analogy I like to use is like a GPS, right? If you're like driving 10 hours away in your car and you type the address into your GPS, like that's setting your goal, right? You're saying where you want to go. But then if you're not looking at that at every single turn, you're going to go the wrong way. Most people, like they type the goal in the GPS and they throw the GPS out the window and start driving. And then a year later, they're like, I'm not here yet. Like, obviously. So you want to like remind yourself of your goal every single day, and then you, again, recalibrate. And then with that, there's like internal goals and external goals. So I think most people get caught up on external goals of like, I want to make X amount of dollars, or I want to buy this thing. But typically the internal goals are better, because I find at least you can mark your progress towards it each day. And so what I mean by that is like, if you had an internal goal of being more disciplined or being more loving or caring.
What are yours?
My internal goals? Well, my main ones are just like, I've got this like character, this identity of who I want to be. And then I can track my actions towards that person. So I've got like,
just like a higher self.
Yeah, like ideal Connor. And then I know how ideal Connor should act. And then I can track that every single day. Did I act in that way? Like ideal Connor, if he was disciplined, and I remembered today I ate some chocolate. Okay, I wasn't 100% on that path. But you can see that every single day, and again, you can recalibrate. Whereas if your goal's like, I want to buy like a Ferrari, like it's like binary, right? You either have it or you don't. And so every day it's like, did I buy the Ferrari? No. Did I buy the Ferrari? No. And then one day you buy the Ferrari, and then it's like, okay, now I've got a Ferrari. Now that goal is useless. But if your goal is like to be like a nice person, every day you can track that. Was I a nice person? Yes. And you're never done. Like you're never like, okay, I'm a nice person. Cool, done. Like now I can
show
be a
up
dick.
the next day. I can be a dick now. I was a nice person for one day.
Yeah. So you're never done. So yeah, the internal goals of like who am I becoming? They're always the best. And that's like most important. I think like there's a quote that I like. It's not what you get, it's who you become. And most people focus on like what they get, but it's who you become along the way that really matters. Or another quote is, what is it? Money can't solve all your problems, but the person you need to become in order to get it typically can.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I like that one.
Yeah, I like that one too.
I really like that one.
Yeah. So again, it's about like becoming that person, and then the external stuff comes.
Self-awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when you focus on the internal, like, yeah, I think it's much better, and you feel better. Like you're not chasing these things that you only really probably want because you think you should want them, or like you're trying to impress other people,
which would be keeping you like having external goals. For me, as you said, that just clicked, and that was just like you're just doing things to get those goals. When you're focusing on the internal goals and like the best version of yourself, you're being it rather than just doing it.
Yeah, and those external things never last. Like, because you set the goal to buy the Ferrari and you buy it, and it's like, okay, well now I need another goal, and then it's another thing, and it never lasts. But the internal things will. The only caveat to that is I do think like external things can help for your environment. Yeah. So this is like called normalization. Basically, like a good analogy is that if you ever see someone like a rock climber climbing a cliff face, you'll see they'll like climb it, and every like few meters they shove a pole into the cliff face so that if they fall, like they're anchoring themselves, they only fall as far as that last pole. And so if you're progressing in your job, your career, or personal life or whatever, if you don't do something to kind of shove that pole into the cliff, like anchor yourself to this new identity, then you run the risk of slipping back. So I found like a few years ago, it was probably like a year and a half ago, our business had grown a lot, but I was still driving the same car that I had when I was like a personal trainer. And like what happens is if you don't change your environment, you don't normalize this new level, again, you run the risk of like slipping back into that. So whilst it's not like, I wouldn't use it as a way to motivate yourself typically. I mean, you can if it motivates you can do what you want, but changing your environment and normalizing a new level. And it could be something as small as like, for me, when I bought that Juve panel, it was like, okay, I'm setting this new standard of now I care about like my performance more. I'm like taking biohacking seriously. So I bought something. So you've got something in your environment that's tangible every single day you see it, and it reminds you like, hey, I'm playing at this new level now. And so doing that every time you kind of get to a new level will help anchor you in, like shove that pole into the cliff.
God, I love that. And
that way, if you fall back, like you won't fall as far as like being a personal trainer and only making like $300 a week. Now I've got like a new car, and now if I fall, I'm staying at this level. And you kind of just change your identity a little bit. So adjusting to your level. It's
sort of like you kind of map out like, so internally as you just speak, and it's like you map out the best version of yourself, you understand what that is, get really self-aware. And then like the journey is that time is literally just catching up until you get to that person, because you're doing all the things that they're doing every single day and keeping on track on that. And then steps along the way, as time is catching up, it's like, boom, change environment, boom, change environment, boom, change environment.
Exactly. And it doesn't need to be a huge thing. Like you don't need to buy a new car. It could be as small as like buying something to put on your desk, or like getting a new shirt. Like something that reminds you like, hey, like I've made progress and I'm not going to slip back from here.
Cool.
Yeah.
Anything else? Mental tools?
Mental tools. I think learning's like massive. Like taking time to learn. If ever I'm stuck, I'll just read, and that will typically give me an idea. I really like studying people that are like quite obsessive. Like lately I've been studying Michael Jordan and Kobe. Like that kind of next level mindset and mentality I find helps a lot. Again, it's like normalizing. Like if you, that saying, you're the sum of the 5 people you're around. Well, you can't always be around like incredible people, but if you like listen to those people, or read about them, or listen to podcasts, or watch documentaries, in a way you are kind of being around them. And if you have those inputs versus inputs of like the news or social media, it's going to pull you up. And then other than that, probably just trying to be around people like that are doing similar things, or like make you realize, like there's a saying, like if you're the smartest guy in the room, like you're in the wrong room. Like
find a different room.
So those things can definitely help as well.
Cool. Well, speaking on type of quotes, like what do you think would be like currently like your 3 favorite quotes?
Probably that one I said, it's not what you get, it's who you become.
I've got that one written down.
The path of least resistance is not the path to greatness.
Ooh,
I like that one.
I like that one.
And
how does that play out for you?
So like it's always not the easy thing that you need to do. And you always want to do the easy thing. So anytime something's hard, like remind yourself the path of least resistance is not the path to greatness. And if you're trying to be great, you need to do the things that are hard. And so if you're doing something, like people think that if something is uncomfortable, it's wrong. But like resistance creates growth, and without it, you won't grow. So if you're doing something and it makes you feel uncomfortable, like good, you're going to grow. And most people, when they face resistance, like there's two things you can do. You can either push through it, at which point you'll normalize that level of resistance, or you can like retreat to where it's comfortable. And if you do that, then you stay where you were.
Yeah.
So,
and I think what's really important to notice with that too is that a lot of people start to think like, oh, resistance. What I need to do is like, oh, I'm feeling resistance right now. I just keep needing to smash. Go to the gym, get this done. But then you start getting to the thing like before, as you were saying, you just get caught up again doing things. And sometimes the path of most resistance is actually going on something like a think week, where it's like, oh, I got all these things going on right now. I don't have the time to go on a think week. And then you go on a think week, you put your phone away, which is like ridiculously hard not to be on there because that's the most resistance. And then you come out like, oh, I feel so much better. I'm so much clear.
Yeah.
So that like makes a lot of sense to me. I really like that. And just for anyone listening, like not to take the quote, like the path of like, the path of least resistance is not the path to greatness. It doesn't mean the path of like most resistance as in smashing stuff. That's like, no, where are you like, as Connor said, uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And then go into
what's going to make you grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Next quote.
Oh, you're putting me on the spot with these quotes.
I'm putting you on the spot.
I think like the quote that I like replay in my mind the most is how you do one thing is how you do everything. And that is, that's like a real curse in my mind sometimes. I'll finish a meal and I put like a dish in the sink and I like start walking away and I'm like, how you do one thing is how you do everything. I'm like, damn it. And you go wash that dish. But that one's about like, people think that you can like separate areas of your life. You can be like somehow show up in a work environment and be like dedicated and focused, and then at the gym be lazy. It's like, no, your subconscious doesn't realize that like one's in the gym, one's at work. It just realizes like, I'm lazy. So if you're lazy here, you're going to be lazy there. And if you want to be dedicated here, you need to be dedicated everywhere. And so the more you can like commit to excellence in all the areas of your life, then the easier it will be to show up in that way in the things that you actually care most about. Yeah.
One thing that you've mentioned, I just want to quickly dig in, is that you've mentioned like how your subconscious shows up, and you've learned about that. How have you learned about how your subconscious shows up and how the things that you do directly impact that, which is going to impact how you show up every day?
Oh, that's like
was that a book? Was that intuitive? Like,
I think there's like a lot there. I think the first time I realized how like powerful it was so like when I was a personal trainer in Adelaide, I tried to start businesses in the past.
Yeah.
And I would do it for like a week or two and then I'd just stop. And I didn't know why that was happening. It was just happening.
Yeah.
And when I moved to Gold Coast and I met that girl I was talking about who had the ebook, she was like very similar age to me, but in my mind was like far more successful. And what was happening, and I didn't realize it until like reflecting on it later, was when I was in Adelaide, I was a personal trainer, I like saw myself as like a bodybuilder, a fitness guy. And it's like the stereotypical bodybuilder is like a dumb meathead who's not successful. Like, there are successful bodybuilders, I'm not saying that, but that was in my mind. And so anytime I would like try to start a business, I had this like subconscious identity of like, oh, you're a bodybuilder, you can't be successful. And I just stopped doing the thing. And then when I met this girl, she was also into fitness, but she was successful in business. And so that kind of like reprogrammed my subconscious as to like, oh, hang on, you can be into fitness and be successful. And as soon as I met her, like within 2 weeks, I was like, okay, I can start a business. I stuck to it. So reflecting back on that, I realized that this subconscious belief that I didn't realize I had was sabotaging me from doing the things I wanted to do over and over and over. There was like 5 or 6 businesses I tried to start and I just stopped. And so that was the first time I really realized like, oh, okay, like how you see yourself subconsciously is really going to determine like who you become. There's this, like, if you study Donald Trump, like before he was political, I know not everyone likes him, but if you study him like when back in the 80s or 90s, at one point he was like $3 billion in debt. Before that he was a billionaire, and then there was like the financial crisis and he was like billions of dollars in debt. There's this story, like walking down the side of the street and there's a homeless person and he says, that man is $1 billion richer than me. And it was true because he was like $1 billion in debt, but his identity was like, I'm a billionaire. And so within a few years, he was a billionaire again. Whereas most people, they get like a few $100s in debt and they never recover. Like, what is that? Well, you have an identity of like who you are, and it's a subconscious thing. And so you'll act in accordance to that subconscious belief. And so making sure like you're telling yourself like who you are or who you want to be and deciding that is going to, like your subconscious will dictate 95% of the things you do. So if you have like, if you're not paying attention to that and you're not actively deciding or helping to decide who your subconscious believes you to be, then it's going to be pretty hard to like fight 95% of your actions.
Yeah, and I also think that another thing that you were mentioning before as we were talking was that, you know, everything you do is feeding your subconscious, whether it's being on your phone, you know, it's being like, you know, addicted to dopamine or whatever you're doing as well. Like, I think that's really important to know is like, yeah, one thing is all the things you said, and then as well that how you feed your subconscious. Everything that you do feeds your subconscious, and then that'll dictate 95% of the things you do.
Yeah, and it's always paying attention. So like, again, like if you like run late for things and then you try to show up on time in something that you care about, like your subconscious is just going to see yourself as someone who's running late. Or if you give up after doing a couple reps at the gym, your subconscious is going to see yourself as someone who gives up. And then when you try to work on a project, like you're going to stop because it's 95% of what you do is your subconscious. So being aware of all those little things and really trying to optimize yourself so that you can be, like how you do one thing is how you do everything. Be the
I was about to
person
say
you
it.
wanna be
I was going to say
in all the
areas.
areas.
I was going to say that's because I do one thing, so I do everything. As well, what I think was really cool as well was one of your companies is a SUP brand, ETERNUM, and you've been creating all these awesome SUPs so that you can use for yourself. Wasn't that right?
Yeah, that's basically the idea behind it.
So you were running your own business, instinct education, and then you started creating ETERNUM, yeah?
Yeah. So I always like to research a lot of different things. I found this one supplement, it's called NMN, and there was like these crazy studies of it increasing...
Peanut or crispy?
NMN.
Ah, okay.
Not to be confused with M&Ms. And there was like all these crazy studies that was like helping increase lifespan of mice and helping improve cardiovascular disease in like older people and all this stuff. I was like, I want some for me and I want some for my like mum and dad. And like to get it in Australia, it was like $200 plus because like the conversion rates and shipping. I was like, oh man, I wonder if like anyone else is looking for this. And I searched like the Google Trends and it was like just like skyrocketing. So I was like, if I sold this, then I could basically get it for free for myself and my family. And so I did that. And then every other supplement we've had was basically just like, for example, lion's mane. Like I started taking lion's mane. I was like, I love lion's mane. Like, I feel so much better. We should probably stock that. So all the supplements are just like the things I take.
Yeah. And then you build it into like $1 million a year company really quickly.
And I get the supplements for free now.
Yeah. Woohoo. And you also come up with 2 new ones, right?
Yeah.
Because I remember you messaged me and you were like, Corey, can you send me every single ingredient ever for something that's going to help me sleep and something that's going to help me like get in the zone.
Focus.
Focus.
Yeah.
And I sent you all the ingredients and then I just remember like a couple of photos you sent me of just like what you were doing with them. What were you doing? What was that journey?
Yeah. So again, like how you do one thing is how you do everything. So I didn't want to like, if I'm going to make a new product, I want to make sure it's good.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get one to improve my sleep. I wanted to get one to improve like focus.
Yeah.
And so I asked Corey, like, what are all the ingredients that could possibly help with that? He gave me this massive list and I ordered every single one like on its own.
You guys don't understand how many ingredients I sent. I think I sent originally I think I sent like 12 or 15. This is my head, could be wrong, but I sent like 12 or 15 for each.
Yeah.
Like 10, 15 to 20. And then you were like, anything else?
Yeah.
And then I sent heaps more. And then I was like, well, you can probably do this as well.
Yeah.
So you ordered like a lot.
Yeah, I think it was like 40 or 50 things. And because I had to order them like in bulk, they were like a kilo. So I had like a kilo of like magnesium, but like I had 5 different types of magnesium.
No wonder
so
that
5
lady
kilos of
down the road rung up saying, there's a drug dealer in my house. There's garbage bags in the windows. There's red lights. There's powders everywhere.
50 kilos of white powder arrived.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I bought every single thing and then I tried every single one on its own and then like combined them in different like ratios and different dosages because I want to see like, I think most supplements they're like, oh, this helps with sleep because we have magnesium and I read online magnesium is good, but it's like the wrong type of magnesium, it's the wrong dose and it doesn't like work with the other ingredients that are in there. Yeah. So I wanted to make sure that like everything in there worked and it was correctly dosed and like they work together. Mm-hmm. And like for sleep one, for example, every sleep supplement I've had, like it would have melatonin or GABA in it and you wake up and you'd feel groggy, like hungover. Mm-hmm. So I was like, well, and I tried like those ingredients, so I know like exactly how GABA makes you feel the next morning and how melatonin makes you feel. And so I tested them all and I created something that like helps sleep without that. And I know because I tested it and I tested like every single type of magnesium, all of them together in all the different dosages and all the other ingredients. And that was the same for the focus one too. So Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. I actually remember when you sent me, like when you finalized, because we've got them here. We've got two of these ones. We've got Zone there for focus and Zen here for sleep. And I remember when you sent me, you're like, this is like the ingredient list for Zen. I remember looking at the back of it and I was like, that's really good. I was like, that's really good. I was like, yeah, everything in there is awesome. And then the Zone one as well, because like I don't like being stimmed too much, because for those who are listening, if you don't realize, if you're taking like a lot of caffeine and a lot of like dopamine stimulating like stimulus, and you're using things that are going to use your, like a lot of stuff that we use, like different types of teas, caffeines, and different types of nootropics, like modafinils or whatever you're taking, like smash your adrenals, like absolutely smash them. So I was like, well, when I saw Connor's the ETERNUM one, the focus and energy, like get in the zone, there was no stims in there. And I was like, this is the best. And had like all these like natural nootropics and other things in there. I was like, this is actually a really good product. Like, this is awesome. So yeah, I thought that was really really good. Shameless plug there.
And you can get yours today.
Yeah, you can get yours today. Yeah, but they're actually awesome. And you're actually launching them soon, because you've just been taking them yourself. We did a mastermind a few weeks ago and then kind of just brought all these Zen and Zone and like gave me a couple. I was like, yes, and we're all just like Zen and Zoned.
Yeah.
The whole time.
We've had them, like my mum does the fulfillment for ETERNUM, and she's been messaging me for like 3 weeks, like, we have like all this product here, are you going to put it on the website yet? I'm like, oh yeah. I'm like, I've been using it, but should probably get around to that. So in a couple of days we'll launch it.
Yeah, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Well, just to leave us, because we'll wrap up this podcast in a second. Just would ask you the one question for anyone who is listening, like, because Connor's done some amazing things and you've understand some of his journey, but he actually gets so much more in depth with stuff. So I'm going to try and get him on again. But I'd like you, if you could possibly leave people with just like 3 pieces of like advice that you've specifically learned that you think is really important, just for someone to do either like this week or this month, if they've got the time. What are 3 things that you'd really encourage them to do in order to perform better or succeed at whatever they're doing?
So I think like one that is probably useful for most people is like thinking of things like stability long term. And I think now it's like more prevalent than ever. There's all these things that will get your attention, like crypto's an example. Like I'm not saying anything good or bad about crypto, but people see these things, people making money, these opportunities, and they're like, go and jump on it. For me, I'm always trying to think like, what's something that I can do now that will like compound and scale for the next like 50 or 100 years? So like if I look at, for example, investing in crypto, like I don't know if that's going to be around in 50 years, it might be, but like trying to make some quick money, like spending the next month to make $100,000 for me, like is not like a great idea. I'd rather do something that will get me an extra $10 or $50 or $100 every day forever, rather than trying to like chase something quick. And so I think there's like so many things like that where, for example, one that's not related to money could be something like reading. Like if you just read a page a day and you compound that over 50 years, like you're going to be a completely different person. So I think most people, like they're trying to find something like, what's the one thing I can do to like get a massive result tomorrow? But if you kind of like invert that and think like, what's something that I can do every single day that's going to get me a small result? Like if you can improve by just 1% a day consistently, like if I gave you $1 and we could increase that $1 by 1% every single day over 5 years, do you know how much that would be worth?
It's a ridiculous amount of money.
$77 million.
Yeah. So one thing every single day that actually compounds.
Yeah, just small things like read a day, or like go for a walk a day. Like, find a way to make an extra $1 a day. Like these things will compound a lot. What's the next thing? I think the next thing would be like stability as well.
You said stability was the first one. Stability long term.
Okay, well, like short term stability.
Okay, yeah, all right.
Like, all right. And this goes back to like self.
So stability 1.0, stability 2.0 for short term.
Like, yeah, if you're like fluctuate, like most people, like they fluctuate. Like one day they'll wake up, they feel good, the next day they feel bad, and there's no stability. The example I gave to you was like, you look at Michael Phelps, who is the greatest Olympian athlete of all time, won more gold medals than anyone. His fastest swim, like the average 10-year-old could outrun him on land. And so like, this is the best athlete ever who is not as fast as a 10-year-old on land because he's in water. And like Newton's first law, I think it's the third law. Every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So when you're in water, like there's no stability there, right? You're pushing and most of your force is being wasted. Yeah. Whereas when you're on land, it's solid. you push and that force is met back with you.
Yeah.
And so, like most people's lives, there's no stability. So
Yeah.
you can't exert force, you can't build momentum if you don't have a stable base. It's like trying to do a squat on like one of those wobble plates.
Yeah.
You can't squat as much.
Yeah.
You need stable ground. So this is like life. Like if you're not stable in your life, if your emotions are up and down, if your energy's up and down, if your health's up and down, you're not going to be able to ever create momentum and force to move forward. So I think like building stability, whether it's just like going to bed at the same time, waking up at the same time, eating at the same time, doing those things to like get stable, now you can actually create something where you can build some force and momentum to start moving forward.
Yeah, so what I would interpret that, everyone, is just like get your health sorted.
Yeah.
Prioritize health first. Create a good stable. From my perspective of things, there's a lot of other stuff, a lot of gold nuggets in there too. What would be the third one? One more thing that someone could do this week or next month that'll just help them, from your opinion.
Go on a think week.
Go on a think week.
Or
There
like,
we go,
or like
guys.
a less extreme version would be go like 24 hours without your phone.
Ooh.
Or like turn off, actually even easier, turn off notifications from your phone. Like if you have notifications from social media, like that's kind of insane. Like if you're trying to focus on something and your phone buzzes because like some dude in China liked your photo and you're letting that person take your attention off the thing that you're trying to do that's hopefully going to get you close to your goal. And now you're not doing that because someone like double taps something you uploaded. Like that's crazy. Just turn that off and check it when you want to check it.
Yeah.
Like it will still be there.
Yeah.
Like,
It'll still be
you
there.
don't need to check it instantly. And by doing that, you can kind of like retrain your brain to not be so distracted.
Yeah, I remember like 2 years ago when I was up here in Queensland and you were doing something and you were just like, I need to be off my phone more. I just like ditched your phone. You're just like, I'm going to leave it here on the other side of the room. I'm not getting it to the end of the day.
Yeah, most days I'll like put it in my room off and on airplane mode and like I'm not in my room. So it's like, yeah. Because like
do not disturb.
Yeah, it's like willpower.
Take the SIM
like,
card out.
Because I know like if I'm sitting there, I'm trying to work and my phone's next to me, I'm going to look at it. And if it's next to me and buzzing, I'm like certainly looking at it. So like I don't want to try the like, yeah, I don't think long-term progression is about like having incredible willpower. It's just like putting in yourself in a situation where you don't need it.
It comes back to self-awareness. As you said beforehand. Self-awareness and know where you're going to slip up, give in or do whatever, or be distracted. Self-awareness when you're going to be distracted and then just remove the distraction.
Yeah, it's like if you have, there's like, I think it's a saying or something. If you have a bowl of M&Ms on your desk, you're very like M&Ms. You're very
good for anti-aging?
You're very likely to eat them.
Yeah.
If that bowl of M&Ms is like on the other side of the room, you're less likely. If it's in the cupboard, it's even less likely. But if it's not in the house, it's not likely at all. It's impossible. So it's like, yeah, just remove the M&Ms from not the M&M.
Oh, cool. All right, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing me like all of your wisdom and your knowledge. I've got like a whole page of notes here written up. I'm going to try to put as much of these as possible into the notes because there's some really practical terms here. Just for 3 points for you guys, as Connor left at the end there, was 1, stability long term. Figuring that out is really important. And then number 2 would be like, what's the stability in the short term? How can you like stabilize your life by focusing on like just doing things like sleep and health and becoming indistractable? And then also the third one is turning off your phone. Try to go like 1 day without your phone, That's prior to a think week, and then maybe try a think week after that. And just another little tip, obviously Connor's got Zen and Zone coming out. Obviously you've heard the story about how he made them, and they're really good products, and I've tried them myself, and I really like them as well. So if you're interested, ETERNUM Labs is the website.
ETERNUMLabs.com.au.
ETERNUMLabs.com.au. Head there. And Connor, if people want to like reach out, don't. If anyone has any questions,
Probably won't see it.
yeah, because Connor's not really active on anything, like besides all the stuff that he's doing with his work. He's not really active. Like you can find all these website stuff, but if you're interested in anything, ask me, and I'll be able to get back to you and like try and get him to answer some questions and stuff for you. So thanks for listening, everyone who's listening. Thanks Connor for coming on, and enjoy the rest of your day, guys.
See ya. Thanks.
Yeah.
Fun.